Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast with NBA shooting coach Dave Love and your host, Matt Robertson, exploring the cutting edge of evidence-based shooting development in basketball today, from shooting form to skill acquisition to shot metrics. This is the Coach Dave Love podcast.
Welcome to the Coach Dave Love podcast. I am your host, Matt Robertson, and with me, as always, NBA shooting coach Dave Love. Dave, what's going on?
Matthew, how are you? I'm well. How are you?
Thank you for asking twice. I am doing excellent, thank you. Played golf yesterday after we did the podcast with Derek and couldn't stop thinking about Quiet Eye. Thanks for asking. How about you? What's going on?
This is a perfect lead in because I told you I wanted to kind of talk about something before we get into the meat of the episode. And what I want to talk about is like just how impressed with your development I've been in the last couple episodes where like I feel like you're starting to like really kind of get some of these concepts and how they all kind of fit together. And one of my favorite moments is when we finish an episode like the last episode on Quiet Eye, where the guest will leave and we'll hang around and you'll usually kind of sit back in your chair and go, whoa, okay, new door to a new area just opened and I'm going to need a little time to process. But you're processing very, very quickly. And that's exciting to watch from a distance.
I am not good at taking compliments, so thank you very much, Dave. That's enough of that. But I do really appreciate it. It's been super interesting. I've enjoyed the entire ride. And some of the things are more helpful than others for me. For example, yesterday, I'm on the first tee staring at the golf ball, and in my head, I'm set up, my grip is fine, my stance is fine, and I'm like, okay, I'm staring at the impact spot. Oh no, I'm staring at it. I've been staring at it for too long. Was I staring at it enough? And I had to step off the ball so that I could step back in to be like, okay. So I found a solution to that, and I was like, you know what? This is actually really helpful, but needed to find my new routine with that sort of thing in mind. Anyway, so not super helpful in the moment, but honestly, an awesome concept, and really, I was floored when he went through it.
Yeah, and it's like what's so fun for me watching you is just this. A lot of these concepts are brand new to you, and then you get a little time with them and digest them, and after a week or two, you have a pretty solid basis of understanding, and then it's just a matter of getting in the gym with somebody that you're not worried about ruining or finding out like how you can experiment with these ideas. A lot of this happened for me during COVID lockdown. And when things started to just like open up in Canada ever so slightly, where two people could occupy the same half court, that's when a lot of my experimentation with using some of these things that I'd learned from Chris Oliver and others really started to step on the gas with it. And I feel like you're at this point now where the next year might be really fun.
I get really excited about a number of things we've talked about. I get with my head coach and our other assistant coach a couple times, every couple of weeks or whatever. And just as we talk about the different players and the different pieces we're trying to put in, my brain is ticking. It's always going to be like, oh, add a decision here, speed this up, add a defender here, constrain the defender. Like there's all these pieces that I get excited about potentially being able to use in the fall. So, yeah, man, I am your first coach development project, I think, or from a grand scale anyway, and I'm excited to make you proud.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that. I try not to look at it that way because that feels a little egotistical. But watching you makes me really hopeful that we're having an impact for other coaches who may have come in at a similar level where like I've been coaching for years, but I'm not aware of research on these topics. I've never heard of quiet eye. What is that? I don't know what constraint-led approach is, or hopefully we're breaking down that barrier a little bit on the heels of people that are doing it on a much higher level, much more thorough and level than we are. But we've got a nice little niche.
I think so too. Again, going back to Quiet Eye, 1996 is the date that he slapped on that, and that absolutely, again, completely floored that this research has been around for 27 years, and I have not seen heard a whisper of it at all. So, yeah, really hopeful that I feel like I get a lot out of it because I'm engaged in the process as we go through, and hopeful that people will digest and develop even half of what I'm learning here. I think they'll be farther ahead after 30 odd episodes than they were when they started. So very hopeful for that.
Yeah, and then like we haven't even talked shot metrics yet. We haven't
I know.
gone down that road and what that and people are probably yelling at the people who have listened often are probably yelling like, yeah, okay, you keep mentioning this. When are we going to talk about it? And it's probably going to be fall of 2024 that I really start to share what that means and what that looks like. But I'm too focused on learning myself right now to have the time to share as well.
Can you have commented previously that you may or may not be writing a book? Can you talk about the progress of that, or is that something for future days?
Yeah, that's really the moment that I'll start to talk more openly. Like once the book comes out, which I'm hoping for around training camp time in the NBA, which is end of September, that we'll get the book out. And you've been instrumental in that, and I appreciate all of your help with it. And then we can start to share what some of this stuff means.
Buddy, I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Okay, Dave, let's lock in here. We did 11 minutes of banter or whatever the number is. So we want to keep this as concise and let the episode be as what it will be. 30 minutes tight, 100% for sure, definitely happening. This episode was born out of a conversation we were having before a previous podcast. And I just asked you how your day was, what you were up to when you were in Chicago. And you told me a story about a workout you had with the player. And I was like, man, we need to dive deeper into that because we've talked about a number of these concepts, but you were doing it in the workout. I want you to tell that story, and then we're going to talk about what it means for everybody else.
Yeah, so really briefly, I was in Chicago, Illinois this past week working with a player that went undrafted and is trying to find his NBA, likely G League assignment for the year of the opportunity and then build from there. And he needs to do massive work on repairing his shooting form. And so the agency that signed him has brought me in to kind of help with that. And I'd done work for them before with other players. And so we have a great working relationship. I was in Chicago with him for 3 days. And in that time, we did 8 workouts. So we did 3 workouts the first 2 days and then 2 workouts on the third. And on the last workout number 6, the last workout of the second day, I said to him as we walked into the gym, okay, you're leading today. You are in control of this workout. You're going to pretend I'm not here and that you have to now work yourself out. We've got the manager for the local college team who's been kind enough to rebound for us. Shout out to Jamal. And you've got me as another body that you can utilize for passing or defense, or like whatever you want. But you've got to figure out where to start, what to do, why you're doing it. And I'm here as your coach. If you need me, like if you're stuck, then that's why we're doing this today, is so that you have the opportunity to ask the question. And but he was in charge because next week I'm not going to be in Chicago with him. It might be a couple of weeks before I see him again. So he's got to be able to do this. And this was kind of the planting of the seed. And that's kind of the story that I shared with you. about this, and you asked some pretty smart questions about, and that's when we realized, oh, this is a podcast episode.
It's truly this, much like the whole part Only If I Need It, Chris Oliver, which we keep referencing. You describing this to me breaks my brain just a little bit, because the initial thought is I can't possibly imagine this going well. Just my initial with my players that I think about, I'm like, I can think of the BS we're going to be throwing up there. And I realize this is a different situation. You've done a lot of groundwork in the lead up to this, mostly unconsciously for the player, but you set themselves up well. And I love what you said. If you're listening in an audio format, I nodded my head vehemently when you said, I'm not going to be here with you next week, and you need to be able to execute these skills and these habits in a way that is effective. Dave, I love that story. So let's kind of start back and simplify for everyone out there who doesn't really know what this means. Give me a look at what player-led approach means. Like, give me a kind of baseline to start with.
Yeah, so we'll go through a couple of different definitions. The player-led approach. This is a coaching philosophy that ultimately empowers athletes to take ownership of their own learning and development. And this approach emphasizes like players actively being involved in setting of goals, designing of practice sessions, and reflecting and feedback on themselves, not only at the end of a workout, but as the workout is going on. Like the player-led approach is like the player is leading, as opposed to the coach being the dictator in a more traditional method where the coach tells you what to do. This is much more of a collaboration.
So the player gets to have some autonomy in their development, which is fun, but it still scares me as an old school coach or an old school mentality coach. It scares me to like, all right, gang, you're in charge. Let's make it happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So a lot of this comes from instead of giving solutions, and we've talked about this so many times, but it's important to keep talking about it. It's the guided questions to lead towards solutions, and maybe those solutions are the coach's initial thoughts that they would have taught anyways. But in many cases, it's leaving the door open to, hey, the player is an expert, and so they should have much more of a say than we're giving them a lot of times with traditional coaching.
Do you think for younger players, this is as effective of a methodology, or is this more beneficial and directed towards the older, more experienced crew?
No, this is beneficial for everybody. Because it just takes a little bit of a tweak in the coach's thinking. Because I think with traditional coaches, at least what I did, and what I think a lot of people do, is what message do I want to send? And then you send it as directly as you possibly can. You still have the initial thought. What message do I want to send? But then the secondary thought is, what question can I ask to get the player to explore around that idea? This empowers the athlete to feel like they're solving the problems, because for the most part they're doing it with your guidance as a coach. And that we're going to go into this more, but that ownership really helps players buy in, take pride, focus a little bit more. Like it just is the gasoline on pretty much every good fire that you can have as a coach. I realized as I was saying this that the fire might not seem like it's good. In this case, the fire is good. The gasoline is good too. Yeah.
There was an episode where we talked about your form shooting drills, and I kept saying, Coach Dave Love, play the hits. and asking guided questions. What is the purpose of this? Episode 2 or 3, whichever Nelson Charoba was, play the hits. Can you talk a little bit about how this process kind of leads towards self-discovery, which really impacts the learning for the players?
Yeah, so we're just trying to encourage players to explore and experiment with different techniques, different strategies, and see if they can figure out what works best for them. But we're not going in with a prescribed idea that you must look like this when you shoot the basketball, because that's just not a fact. The self-discovery is, we're going to use our experience as coaches to ask questions and do drill that get you to explore around what we think will be more optimal, but leaving the door open to you're a unique individual with unique habits, and we don't have to find the cookie cutter. We have to find your workable solution, and the player's opinion is going to be really valuable in discovering that.
I also think about if there is a difference between their opinion and your expectation, also explains a lot, and you able to kind of bridge the gap there in those moments, right? That's kind of a cool little nugget also.
Yeah, the how to handle the it's not really a disagreement, but like the differing opinions, as probably one of the, and we'll get to it later as well, but like the thing that everybody worries about, like if I'm giving away control to the player, and they have the wrong, like an idea that we as coaches know will not work, how do you handle that awkward situation? And generally it's not as awkward as we worry that it might be, but we'll come to that a little bit later on.
It's a great moment when one of the player goes, funnel your guy middle, and we're going, no, do not do that. Please funnel the baseline. Okay, Coach Dave, we've covered a little bit of ground here. Let's take a break before we kind of get to the meat of this conversation, just so I can force you into an ATO right after this.
Hey there, basketball fans. Coach Dave Love here with an exciting opportunity to revolutionize your shooting game. Introducing my exclusive shot development systems, Pure Release, Consistency and Balance, and Fluidity and Arc. Each system is designed to target key aspects of your shooting technique, transforming you into a more effective player on the court. Pure Release focuses on perfecting your shot release. Consistency and Balance enhances your stability and accuracy, and Fluidity and Arc works on your ball path and trajectory of your shot. Find out the drills and progressions that I use with my NBA players to improve these important habits. Can't decide which one to choose? No worries, grab the bundle and get all 3 systems at a fantastic value. It's a complete package to elevate every part of your shooting game. And there's a special deal for all my podcast listeners. Use the promo code PODCAST20 at checkout to save 20% on any of the shot development systems. Don't miss this chance to train like the pros. Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store and take your first step towards shooting success. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store.
Welcome back. Coach Dave, as we often do in this on this podcast, in this format, we're going to put 24 up on the thought clock. I'm going to make you run after timeout. Please give us the very concise look at what we just talked about in the last segment.
Player-led approach is a coaching philosophy that we can use that empowers athletes to learn to solve problems on their own, as opposed to a coach-led approach where we are solving the problem. And the reason that it's not going to be as beneficial for us to solve the problem is we will never be on the floor with the players. They've got to learn how to solve it themselves.
Slow clap worthy, Dave. Kick a wide open tray ball. Couldn't be more. That's the one where I tap the head coach and I go, hey, put 3 on the board for you. That's awesome. That's on you.
Appreciate that. And it should come as no surprise because I'm known for being concise and very clear with my words at all times.
It's on the back of the baseball card. Underneath the stats, the one fun fact about Coach Dave: always concise and, well, I was going to say direct. In fact, always direct, rarely concise. So this is growth on
Right.
this is growth on your end, where you're talking about my knowledge growth. This is the growth curve for you. I really enjoy this, Coach Dave.
And let me just say, if you're listening, this is your first episode that you've ever listened to. That was sarcasm. You're going to learn. I can ramble and take tangents and half-finished thoughts in this format, and I'm really working on not doing that.
It's where the magic lives, but we want to keep the magic reined in. Too much magic is not good for anybody. Coach Dave, we have defined sort of the major tenets, the major terms that we're going to be talking about here. Let's talk benefits. Like, go through some of the proven benefits of this kind of approach for us.
Okay, so the number one benefit is going to be the fact that players deserve way more credit. Like, players are experts, and we often, I'd lost the word that I was looking for, but we often discredit how much players know because we think we're the coaches, we know, and we're teaching the players. Players are on the floor, and players, I guarantee, are the only people that can physically feel what they're feeling, both emotionally and physically. We as coaches will never know what they physically feel in moments, whether it's like how their hands are connected to the basketball, how tired they are, how much they're bought into the idea, how happy they are that day. Like, they can feel those things, and that's information that we hope to pull out of them, but they have it. And so the player's opinion is incredibly valuable, and we need to be utilizing that more. So do we want to go through some of the, like, just talk in a couple of sentences about the overall benefits, and then we can break each one down a little bit more if you want to?
Your world, buddy. Let's go. Let's do it.
Okay, so some of the benefits of this, and I'm just going to be looking at my notes here at the same time. So we're going to get improved engagement and motivation. When we use a player-led approach, we're going to develop problem-solving skills within players. We're going to enhance skill retention, and then we're going to develop and increase confidence and independence. And all those things can come out of taking a player-led approach as opposed to a coaching-led approach or a coach-led approach.
I want to go back to something you said in that initial, the biggest benefit piece. Two pieces. One, I coached with a gentleman who had a bunch of NBA experience a bunch of years ago, and he said, players are stupid, and don't ever say that to them, and don't ever treat them that way, but know when you're explaining something, this is the sort of underlying phenomenon that you're working against. And in that moment, I felt a kind of way about it. And over the years, I've seen some elements of truth in that. But mostly, I'm like, these guys are playing at a much higher level than even at my peak I was able to. You know, I have to respect their expertise, their vision, their IQ, all of those things. So I don't necessarily want to throw him under the bus. However, I don't believe that to be true. So what you're saying, I think, has a lot of merit. Is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, and that's the player-led approach isn't suggesting that they don't have blind spots. Like, we absolutely can have blind spots as human beings, as to, like, you'll see all the videos on social media of Klay Thompson thinks he shoots with his feet at the rim, or Steph Curry thinks he shoots with his feet at the rim. And here's multiple videos of them with their feet turned, and they don't even know what they're doing. Yeah, they have a blind spot. What they think they're doing, what they're trying to do, and what actually happens in a game might be two different things. And it's easy to say the player's dumb. It's a little bit more polite and politically correct to say, hey, they have a blind spot. And guess what? We do as coaches as well. And the biggest blind spot is what we talked about earlier. You will never know what they feel. So ask them, empower them, and pull that information out by letting them take the lead on the things that is probably more appropriate for the player to take the lead on.
Like, couldn't like clip that out and say it again 6 times, because I feel really strongly about that, Dave. I played at a high level. I know how they feel. I don't know how they feel. I've not lived a day in their shoes. I've never, I've come from the like middle class household that I came from, and that I can't know about any of their experience unless they've shared with me, and that all leads as part of their experience.
And even just on a micro level, like how did it feel? How did the ball feel in their hand on that last shot? You'll never know. Like on that micro level. So ask them, hey, what'd that feel like? Like, why do you think you know what you saw as a coach? And we'll dive into all these things. You know what you saw, but you don't know what they felt. So empower them by acknowledging that what they felt is a really, really important part of the equation here, and how they think they might need to solve it based on what they felt might be also very valuable.
Very fair. Dave, can you talk a little more about the skill retention piece too? Like kind of going through the different benefits. Like, that's one of the ones that I really feel also like I want you to validate that a little more, because I feel that's a really important piece.
So skills learned through active involvement tend to be retained better. And so when I teach somebody what to do, and especially if it's in a block practice setting where there's a lot of repetition and it's my voice that is the only advice or the only voice, it's really easy for a player to turn their brain off. Let me solve all the problems. Let me make all the decisions. Let me tell them what to do. And they just go out and do it in autopilot mode. And guess what? They're not going to be in autopilot mode in a game. So the game starts and their brain is going to be actively involved, but they're not going to know how to navigate the problems, because I've been the one that solved them for them. And so that active involvement of them in the process creates that engagement that will further their skill retention. That you could teach them to develop the skill, but to apply the skill when they're in autopilot mode, that's the hard part. And we see so many coaches that will say, "Oh, the player doesn't get it. Like, I told them what to do. They don't get." Yeah, because you've just done that. You've told them what to do, but you actually haven't helped them build the habit of doing it or applying the habit into a game situation.
You used the example a few episodes ago of a player standing on one side of a bridge and the coach standing on the other. And the coach rolls over and explains exactly how to get across the bridge, and then walks across and says, "Okay, come across the bridge." Like, that's not a good approach to teaching, or that's not the most optimal way to teach.
Yeah, if I go across the bridge and pick them up and carry them across,
oh yeah,
then is that really going to help them get across the bridge the next time? Here, watch me do this. Let me solve this issue. Whereas if I, like, it might just be as simple, and I think I said this in the analogy that I gave the last time, like, it might just be that all I need to do is say, "You can do it," or "Do you have an idea where you're going to step first?" Or, like, sometimes that's all we need to do as a coach, because the player needs to understand. Like, I'm excited to kind of share the most common questions that I ask in workouts now, because I think they're really I don't want to say genius, because that the importance of them is in the simplicity of them, and so I'm kind of excited to go there.
You can let me call them that, because I do think that's what they are. But anyway, Dave, let's take a quick break. And when we come back after the ATO, we'll get into challenges and misconceptions involved in player-led approach.
Hey basketball fans, Coach Dave Love here with an exclusive offer just for you, my personalized video shot analysis. Imagine having an NBA shooting coach analyze your shooting form, just like I do for the pros. That's exactly what you'll get with my video shot analysis. Here's how it works. You send me a video of your shot and I'll break it down frame by frame. I'll pinpoint your strengths and identify the areas of improvement and give you tailored advice to take your shot to the next level. You'll receive a comprehensive analysis designed just for you. Whether you're a beginner or an aspiring pro, my feedback will help you shoot with confidence and precision. It isn't just feedback, it's a game changer. With my video shot analysis, you're not just practicing, you're evolving, and every single shot counts. Ready to transform your game? Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store to learn more and get started. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store and look for video shot analysis.
Welcome back. Coach Dave, putting 24 up on the thought clock. ATO, give me a look at what we talked about in the last segment concisely, please.
Well, the biggest thing that I want players or coaches to get out of this is if you let players have a bit of a say in their development, you're really going to increase the level of engagement and motivation. And that, I think, is going to play a huge role in their skill retention and application. So these things all seem really, really simple and small, but they lead to big results.
Dave, on fire today. Just coming out firing. Excellent job. Good job by you. Dave, jump right into the challenges and misconceptions of player-led approach.
Okay, so the challenges that kind of go on, it can be, especially early on as a coach, to balance like the autonomy, the empowerment of the player with guidance from the coach. That is not an either or. This is not what we're talking about with player-led approach. That is, give the reins over to telemarketer calling.
Yeah.
It's not give the reins over to the player and let them steer the ship. I mix my metaphors there. But it's like you're there to help guide them. Another challenge is just time constraints. That using this approach, like the reason I did this in workout number 6 with this particular player is I needed the 5 workouts before that to teach them enough, to empower them enough that they were able to take the lead. That you can't just say like to a 6-year-old, all right, you lead this workout, Bobby, who's never played basketball before. Tell me what we need to work on. And then Bobby goes like, sorry, what is happening here? So you do need the time to kind of set the stage. And then like both the player and the coach can be pretty resistant to change. So coaches, obviously, this is hard for us to give up the control that we're used to having to the player. But it can be also a little annoying at times and early on with players where they ask you, like I get asked all the time, what do you want me to do? And I don't really answer the question. I put it back on them. Well, what do you think we should do? How many reps of this drill should I be doing? Oh, well, there is no answer. How many reps do you think that you need to get that? And in the first workout with a headstrong player who's used to a militaristic coach, it can be really frustrating. Some people take to it right away and they're like, oh, wow, I get to make a decision. I get to have a little control here. All right, this is fun. This is great. But some people do need a little time to warm up to the idea.
For the players with the rigid old school mindset, I can only imagine how annoying that first question must be when you said, like, what should I do? What do you think we should do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm oversimplifying just because I didn't have a specific example loaded for that. But they'll ask like, what drill should I start with? Well, what drill is going to help you do this thing better that you're working on? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, what drill did we start with yesterday? Was that too easy to like? I have an idea, but my idea isn't always right. And if anything, and I said this to the player yesterday, like I tend to be the brakes a little bit too much, and players tend to be the gas a little bit too much. Meaning, I tend to want to slow things down and err more towards perfection. They just want to go. They just want to play. And the sweet spot is probably in the middle. And I need to be a little bit more of the gas, and they might need to be a little bit more of the brake. But we figure it out.
Your note about balancing autonomy with guidance, how much of this, how much better is this when you have an established relationship with the player? You talked about it a little bit, but can you just expand on that a little bit more? Like you have a feel for them to give them that autonomy.
For sure, this becomes easier as you have that relationship. But I also think it plays a big role in building that relationship. Like, even before I was aware of the player-led approach, the thing that I said to multiple players, and a huge percentage of those players came back to me a year later and said, like, that was the thing that you said earlier on that got my attention. It brought me in. The thing that I said to them was, I'm going to teach you to not need me. And I didn't know what the player-led approach was, but ultimately what I was trying to say is here, I'm going to help you learn to solve the problems yourself. And they, a couple of them, pros, said, nobody had ever said that. Like, everybody's trying to hitch their wagon to my star in a way, and like trying to build my dependence on them. And here you came in and said, I'm gonna help you not ever not need me as much. And that got their attention. So I think that builds a lot of trust and can help, especially with a mature player, really cement or grow a relationship.
Talk about turning challenges into a positive. My last note before we move on to the misconceptions, Dave, the resistance to change piece. In your opinion, how much of that is directed at the target audience of the podcast versus the players usually?
You're right. A majority, like it's 70-30, but it's not 90-10. Because I've had enough players that, like, I don't want to name names, and of all demographics. Like, I've had the 14-year-old girl who was just like, old man, like, not saying this, but you could tell this was her body language. Old man, just tell me what to do. and I would joke with her, like, I'm driving you insane, aren't I? You just want me to tell you the answer, right? And guess what? There is no answer. You're smart. You play this game. There's multiple ways to get the ball to go in the rim. Let's just figure out which one is best for you. And and then there have been some headstrong pros. There have been the 12-year-old boy. There's been everybody. There's been one in every demographic that has been as resistant as the coach might be to the idea.
Very balanced answer. Delightful anecdote. Thank you for sharing. Can you get to the few misconceptions that you've listed here for us?
Okay, so misconceptions of like people learning about the player-led approach and considering it, but then saying like, oh no, this could never work because number one, they think that the approach is saying the player always knows best. And the player ultimately has an opinion, and we're just valuing that opinion. And so the player-led approach is not just letting the player do whatever they think is right. It's maybe letting them do what they think is right for a couple of reps, because I know it's not going to work, but I'll let them learn it's not going to work, and then I'll circle back and guide them towards another potential solution. And who knows, maybe that one doesn't work, and we'll spend a couple of reps discovering that doesn't work either. Like that's really what this is. A misconception about the player-led approach is that they think it will lack structure, that we're just going to roll the ball out and the players are just going to go play. But ultimately, like you can still have the appropriate amount of structure and plan and goals and objectives within this kind of approach as you do within a coach-led approach. And if anything, a coach-led approach can be too structured. Like I go back to the workout that I've referenced a couple of times where a young trainer doing a workout for a pro had his list of, we're going to do 10 reps of this, and then we're going to move to the other side of the floor, and we're going to do 10 reps of the same dribble move going the opposite direction. Then we're going to move back to the right side of the floor, and we're going with this dribble move. And there was no deviating from the plan. If the player needed less reps, we still did 10. If the player needed more reps, we still just did 10 and we moved on. And so that structure was almost a hindrance in the coach-led approach. Then lastly, misconception is that this is ineffective for younger players. Like there's still teaching that needs to go on, but you can still ask guided questions that empower the athlete, even with 9-year-olds that haven't really played the game before. You just have to make them aware of more simplistic, fundamental things like balance and like hand position and those sorts of things with respect to shooting.
I think those bottom two, in my mind, when I think about, so again, for me, the misconceptions were lack of structure is the number one thing I flash to with the traditional approach. Like, well, it's just going to be a mess and we're going to be firing at mid-range jumpers or half-court shots, or, in my mind, that's the result of this. But in practice, obviously, if the players take it seriously and the players want to be there and you already have sort of a overarching structure that you've been delivering, they probably will stay closer to that, especially in the beginning, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think if you're feeling a lack of structure from a player-led approach, you've probably just skipped over some of the fundamental questions. And so we'll get to this in hammer action or in the next 10 minutes probably or so. But yeah, if you're feeling like that you don't have the structure, you probably skipped over some of the questions that you should have been asking to guide them towards some more structural solutions.
In the next 10 minutes of this definitely 30-minute podcast. Dave, let's take a break.
Oh, yeah. We're definitely going to keep this under half an hour. Absolutely.
Definitely. No question. Minute 37. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
Hey there, basketball fans. I'm NBA shooting coach Dave Love, and I've got exciting news just for you. Introducing my exclusive, free basketball shooting newsletter. It's packed with insights and techniques straight from the hardwood. Have you ever wondered how NBA players improve their shots? Or how you could get to the next level, whether you're a college player, a coach, or a budding youth player? My newsletter brings all this and more directly to your inbox. Each edition is a deep dive into the world of basketball shooting. I'll share some of the tips and ideas that I use with my NBA clients, tailored for every level of the game. But wait, there's more. Subscribers receive exclusive monthly discounts on my online products. From training videos to personalized coaching sessions, you'll get it all for a fraction of the price. And the best part of all, it's absolutely free to join. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your game and join a community of passionate players and coaches from around the globe. Signing up is easy. Just visit CoachDaveLove.com.
And welcome back. Coach Dave, 24 on the thought clock. Give us a look at what we talked about in the last segment.
Okay. Misconceptions about the player-led approach. The player-led approach is not just saying to the player, you decide what we do, and then we'll do that. It doesn't need to be unstructured, that there can still be structure involved in it. And it is not necessarily better for older players and horrible for younger players. You just have to make adjustment to the level of difficulty of the questions that you're asking for younger players.
Man, kudos to you. Whatever happened between our episode with Derek and today, keep doing that because you're crushing these ATOs today. Great job by you.
I appreciate. Well, number one, Derek was the inspiration because he was a machine with those. But then, like, I'm also just getting a little bit better in full transparency. I have notes, and so I'm getting better at talking to you, but also referring back to my notes, because when I tend to ramble, it's more when I'm going off the cuff, and when I can give myself a little bit more direction with some notes, then I don't ramble quite as much.
That's why I like to throw curveballs at you, because I like the ramble. Coach Dave, let's talk about implementing this as a strategy. Do we just roll out the balls one day and say, all right, gang, you're running practice today? Like, what does it actually look like?
Well, it's going to start with setting goals. And so this is a player-led approach. Guess who we're going to ask for their opinion on what the goals should be? The player. That doesn't mean that we don't get to have feedback as or opinions as coaches, or that we're even going to necessarily take their goals. We're going to ask their opinion. We're going to ask for their solutions with the goal. Like, what do you think your goal should be? How are you going to go about achieving those? And if you get an answer that you think, that doesn't work well, or that's not going to fit, you ask another question and you try and guide them towards what you think. And then ultimately, you might have to let them fail. You might have to okay, let's try that. Let's see if that works. If you're as a player, you really want that to be it. All right, let's see. Let's give it a shot. And then maybe it works. Maybe they were right, you were wrong. Or maybe you just now need to say, okay, is this going well? I don't feel like this is going well. Do you feel like this is going well? Should we adjust our plan in some way? You do think we should adjust our plan? In what way do you think we should adjust our plan? Oh, I like that. Let's try that. Like, that's ultimately what this kind of looks like. So practical steps: number one, set goal. Number two, the real goal of this player-led approach is each player is different. And so we get something customized. This takes a little bit more work. And the more you do it, the more you'll start to recognize the patterns of, okay, I don't need 8 billion different solutions. Different people will sort of fit different molds, and I'll be able to kind of establish little templates and adjust off of that a little bit better. So it's not daunting as you get into it, but it can be a little bit more time consuming in the beginning. And then, like, just we have to encourage experimentation. Like, it's not you have to do it this way. It's, what do you think we need to do? All right, let's give that a try. How can you make this harder? Do we need to make this easier? What do you think? Like just asking these guided questions to encourage experimentation when we need it, and then refine that when that's needed as well.
Every fun invention has come from a mistake or experimentation or some failed other thing, so you're absolutely right. Experimentation is, what if this necessity is the mother of invention, or whatever that quote is. What a fun way to learn for a player that's not just hammer home this 10 reps in a row and then we'll move on to the next thing.
I'm so mad at myself right now. I've completely blanked on somebody that I sort of consider a hero in a weird way. Who was it that invented the light bulb? Like, who's that Edison. Famous inventor? That Thomas Edison. And he's got like the I haven't failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Like, sure. All these, like, I really want to get a T-shirt made of just like my favorite Thomas Edison quotes, because he has like 8 quotes that are like, ooh, okay, that belongs on a coffee mug in my wife's little. That's the highest compliment I can pay, is that my wife needs a coffee mug with. I'm trying to think of one of his other quotes now. It's been a while since I've talked about them, and I'm very, very old now. We'll move
very,
on.
very old now. I was going to say my favorite coffee mug is a baller shot collar coffee mug, but that's not indicative of my personality. So, okay, on task. Okay, so you've given us a few implementation strategies. Can you delve into a little bit more what experimentation might look like for a player in your? So again, I'm a player that I'm like, Dave, we ran these drills for the last 3 workouts, and so I'm gonna try to stay within those. How would you encourage me to experiment in that kind of in that kind of a situation?
Okay,
If I'm
so
a player?
let's take, and hopefully you'll start to see like how a few of our different topics are kind of connected. That like I don't know if we've done implicit explicit learning as an episode, but we've referred to it many times. Or internal or external cues, I know was an episode, but like they're all kind of interconnected here. And so if we said like somebody needed to improve their balance, it would start with just like, I see it. And then after a shot where I felt like they were particularly off balance, say like, what did you feel there? And is this the question that you're asking, Matt? Am I even answering the question that you're asking?
Yeah.
I have
So
to worry for a second.
no, you're doing great. Like if I'm a player in this situation where I'm kind of sticking to your plan, so we've run 5 workouts together, and you say, okay, this workout you're leading, and I don't want to step on your toes, so I just try to do the same kinds of things that you were doing before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so for the experimentation, I'll like going back to balance. I would say like, okay, did you feel that? Yeah, I felt that. Okay, good. Don't even tell me, but just show me like, what do you need to do to be more balanced? Like what, or I'll even say, don't even tell me, but just like, do you know what you need to change? Yeah. Okay, perfect. And I won't even have them say it out loud. Just like, okay, now show me. And then at times I'll even say like, okay, make a mistake. Do something that is going to cause you to be tremendously off balance. Well, what do you mean? Create a situation in which the shot that you're going to shoot, you almost on purpose are out of control of your body. Okay, what kind of mistake did you make? I got my feet close together. Oh, feet close together causes instability. Interesting. Okay. Now make the opposite mistake. What would the opposite mistake look like? And you're just guiding towards so it's differential learning. I'm probably slipping in some external cues in there. I'm implicitly teaching as opposed to explicitly teaching. Like these are all sort of idea, but it's not repeat the same thing, the perfect thing over and over and over again and expect that to apply to a game. I've even encouraged, and I had to say it multiple times over the last 3 days or 8 workouts, like when you fumble the ball, I need you to fight through and figure out how to try and make that shot. That's our goal. That's our goal is that we have to like play through that mistake and learn how to, oh shoot, I am not in a great situation here, but I'm pot committed to this shot. Can I still make this one? And I know as a coach that wasn't your best, but I know it's like a mistake that happened once, and so I don't really need to coach you. We can't fake you being out of control. We can't practice. We've just got to use the opportunities when it happens to try and sort through the problem.
And this is why I encourage the ramble. Dave, there's so many awesome takeaways in that section. You're a magical man. All of those things are, well, we're not at hammer action quite yet, but all of those are practical, tangible things that regular coaches can use. One of the things you said really quick before you say the thing you're about to say was when you told the player, don't tell me, show me. In an episode a little while ago, you said, people often can't describe the thing very effectively, and that leads to miscommunication, which leads to conflict. And Anyway, freaking brilliant.
That was a huge moment, because what I was going to say is I want to skip over the next thing and get right to hammer action after the break that we're about to take. But yeah, one of my skill acquisition mentors just like said a profound thing, which was the ability to articulate the problem and the ability to solve the problem don't necessarily go together. They aren't necessarily correlated. And so we don't care if an athlete can describe to you how to solve the problem. We just care if they can. And he said that, and it was like brains, like that was huge.
There was a play early in the season last year where Victor Wembanyama showed how special he was, where he kind of stunted to the opposite elbow and then recovered at the rim on the opposite side of the rim. And he used his hips and he used his length and he pushed off. And if you had to ask them immediately after, Victor, what did you do there? 100% out of 100, he would not have been able to describe what he did. But watching it, it was like, holy smokes, holy poop. It was a magical thing to watch. It was a magical thing to watch, And I guarantee in that moment he couldn't have described it. Like, what a freaking brilliant thing. Magical man. Let's take a break, and we're coming back after the break with an ATO, with hammer action, and a couple other little fun nuggets for the people.
Hey basketball fans, Coach Dave Love here with an exclusive offer just for you, my personalized video shot analysis. Imagine having an NBA shooting coach analyze your shooting form, just like I do for the pros. That's exactly what you'll get with my video shot analysis. Here's how it works. You send me a video of your shot and I'll break it down frame by frame. I'll pinpoint your strengths and identify the areas of improvement and give you tailored advice to take your shot to the next level. You'll receive a comprehensive analysis designed just for you. Whether you're a beginner or an aspiring pro, my feedback will help you shoot with confidence and precision. It isn't just feedback, it's a game changer. With my video shot analysis, you're not just practicing, you're evolving, and every single shot counts. Ready to transform your game? Visit CoachDaveLove.com/store to learn more and get started. That's CoachDaveLove.com/store and look for video shot analysis.
Coach Dave, welcome back. Final ATO of the day. You've been crushing it so far. We're playing Spain. We're in a close game. Run me a play that's going to get me a bucket.
Okay. So what I want you to understand from that last segment is that within the player-led approach, players can be involved in their goal setting, their practice plan, and their experimentation around ideal. That all these things are a part of a player-led approach that will. I started to lose it there. I was trying to put a bow on it. I didn't really need the bow, and then I started to think, I don't really need this bow. Why am I still talking? And it all kind of fell apart. I dribbled it off my foot. Hopefully you got something out of that ATO, though.
This is great. This is just part of the process. You were just messing around in the sandbox, exploring the edges, and we failed that time, and that's okay. It's part of the experimentation development. Coach Dave, it's time for hammer action. This is the part where we hammer home some actionable items for the common coach and the other people listening. Dave, what is the practical piece that you want people to take away from this episode?
Okay, so for hammer action, and then we're going to follow it up with like some examples of some questions. But for hammer action, I want you to know it's okay you should have your opinion as a coach. Your opinion is based on your experience, and that experience is incredibly valuable. But also feel like you're asking more questions, because the player's experience as a player is also incredibly valuable. When you disagree with the player, be flexible enough to try their idea. And if it doesn't work, it's not a haha, see, I told you so. It's a team trying to figure out, okay, that solution that we, not you, the player, came up with, didn't work. So what can we as a team come up with that might solve the problem? And it doesn't have to be our solution as coaches. It might be the player's solution. There's no one way to do anything. here. And so be open-minded and let them take the lead a little bit more.
There's not one way to do it unless it's spots, and then it's don't do it, right?
Sure. Yeah. Check out the what's the name of that episode? The drill.
The least valuable drill done all the time, or something to that effect.
Right. Yeah. Go check out, if you don't know the reference, go check out that episode.
I gotta stop using deep cut. Anyway, I also called you a magical man in this episode, which is a weird thing.
I think you do need to go with the deep cut, because then we get to have these moments to say, like, okay, you're at the end of this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you're new to this, go check out that episode. Go check out the least valuable drill that gets done all the time. Probably around episode 18 or 20.
Couldn't even tell you. We call that cross-selling in the old business, in the old medical business. Coach Dave, so before we leave for the day, give us a look at the kinds of questions you're asking. This is, again, stuff that every coach out there can use in their, even if you're just dipping your toes into player-led approach, these are the kinds of things you can ask.
These are the questions I sort of asked, and I kind of went through a little bit in order. Like, if we're just stepping on the floor, player and coach, for an individual workout, what do you think we need to focus on today? I've got my opinion loaded, and then they probably know what we worked on yesterday, and I probably told them yesterday, hey, we're going to be working on this for a while. It's not that we're going to do this. So I've set the stage. Now it's just forcing them to recall. What do you think we need to work on today? Okay, so what drills are going to help you work on that particular habit? And they hopefully will go to some of the drills that I've suggested that I think will work. But I got to be open-minded enough to say, like, oh, maybe they're going to skip over a couple of steps, and maybe that will work. In fact, that happened in one of our workouts in Chicago, where the player skipped right to drill number 3. And I was like, I would have gone 1, 2, then 3. But guess what? We didn't need drills 1 and 2. He was able to move past them, and that sort of taught me as a coach. Give me a game situation that you do this in. Like, some of the drills that I do, they're not situational based. They're habit based. And so I'll turn to the player and say, like, okay, in this drill, you're moving to the right. Give me a game situation where you're moving right, so we can start to tie this into a game. And what did you feel there? I know what I saw. What did you feel? When I say whatever it is that I've said, what do you imagine? What do you picture? What do you think of? Like, when I say this, what does that make you think of? Did you notice anything there? Like, sometimes just a player will shoot a shot, and I'll just feel anything? Notice anything there? No? Okay. Now let them go. I noticed something, but maybe they didn't. And if I see it a second time, then I'll step in a little bit more, but I'm going to let them figure it out. What did you want to say?
In those last 3 in particular, I shouldn't ask you, those seem like really great touch points to build external cues off of, where you saw something and asking them how it felt versus what you saw. And if they noticed anything, like, those seem like nice touch points for external cue building.
Yeah. And then, like, if we go back to my process for building external cues, it starts with an internal. We move to an external cue that makes sense to me. And then what's the next step? We go to an external cue that makes sense to them. Well, guess who tells me what makes sense to them? The player does. And so, like, we just got to be circling back all the time to say, like, okay, what do you think? Just to wrap up, do you know how to solve that problem? Like, so they become aware. Do you know how to solve it? And maybe they give me an answer, or maybe I tell them, like, don't even give me an answer, just show me. The drill isn't going well, or the drill is going too well. It's not game representative enough. How do we need to simplify this, or how do we need to add challenge to this? Like, how do we make this more difficult? What do you think? And then, do you think we're in the challenge point? Do you think we're at the appropriate level of challenge? Should we adjust this drill? And usually when I'm asking these, I I'm asking because I feel a certain way. But then it is sort of a loaded question often, but I've got to be willing to accept that they may have a different opinion than me.
You make me feel a kind of way because you make it seem so, when you explain it that way, it seems so simple. And I know that it can be, but you've done all the reps and you've done all the preparation. And we also, as the people, can get to that point, but need to put in the preparation and the work and the effort to be able to get there. But you just make it seem so simple, which is a little infuriating in a good way.
And Matt, I was scared to death. It was around COVID, and there was one particular player in name's Dion Wilson, and he was playing for one of the local colleges, and he was my lab rat. I can't remember if I told him or not that I'm going to be making a shift, so there's going to be moments where you're going to see me staring at the floor, thinking like, oh, what do I say now? What do I? But it only took me about 3 or so workouts to start to really get like, oh, okay, I can do this. This isn't that hard. But the first 2 were they weren't. Maybe the player didn't even notice, but I was sweating as I was trying to figure out like, oh, okay, I would have said that. What should I say instead? Like trying to stop every coaching instinct that I had, and assess, is that a good instinct or can I do that better? Didn't take as long as I thought it would, though.
Just another look at how we are our own biggest critic. And as long as the player's getting work, the player's not necessarily going to complain or feel like Charlie. If the workout doesn't go all that well in your mind, the player still might be like, I got a great workout in, I got a great sweat, got a bunch of shots up, away we go. And it maybe wasn't optimal in your mind, but it's still, most work is good work, right?
Yeah. I can remember when I was a player, like you at the end of the night, if you're just playing pickup with your buddies, forgive me, we need a podcast studio, but we live on opposite sides of a very large country. So things like FedEx deliveries and dogs barking, they happen to us. If you don't like it, don't listen. Charlie, hey.
Stop. But please still listen.
Or appreciate it for how adorable the whole thing is.
That's right.
I can remember like playing and we'd all be wrapping up at the end of the night, and everybody would be like, "Hey, good game," and people would say like, "Oh, way to shoot it tonight," and I'd be like, "I didn't feel like I shot that well." Like, so that's not. I guess it's sort of a humble brag, but really. Really, it's like, yeah, we had different perceptions of what was going on. I guess what we were both right, probably. So,
Dave, you're the best, buddy. Thank you very much for your time. Let's wrap up here because, as always, we are over an hour by a stretch here. So apologies to the listener, and thank you for staying with us till the end. Coach Dave, where can the people find you?
Newsletter, CoachDaveLove.com. Sign up for that. Get a boatload of free information. Then find me on Twitter, X, and Instagram at Coach Dave Love. Where do people find you?
People can find me on X at Coach Matty Rob, and on LinkedIn. Please reach out if you have good or bad feedback. You want to share a story or an experience this was helpful or not helpful. We want to know. Please rate, review, subscribe, tell a friend. It all really helps. We really appreciate you, and see us next week.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Coach Dave Love Podcast. To stay up to date with our future episodes, please remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to sign up for Coach Love's free shooting newsletter on CoachDaveLove.com, and be sure to follow him on social media. You can find him at Coach Dave Love.